We need something to take our startup to the next level. Something, what is it? Establish product market fit, establish a customer base, raise more funding? What we need is a really, really ridiculously cool logo. Okay, but it should be simple yet iconic. I want it to be more recognizable than the Apple logo. Anything else? I want it by midnight so I can contradict myself, throw it in the trash, and devote more time to this tomorrow. Alright. Oh, and one more thing. Yeah? Make it pop. Company branding and all that entails always comes after the business idea. But what most early stage startup founders don't know is when they should seriously think about branding and how many resources they should put into it. For answers, we had a chat with German-born and New York-based Saskia Ketz. Saskia runs a branding studio for startups and larger companies. She's also the founder of MojoMox, a platform that helps founders create a modern logo and a brand kit in just 3 easy steps. So let's start from the very beginning. Why would you say branding is so important for startups?
So first off, let's start to maybe clarify the word branding. So many people think it's a visual or the tone of a brand. So the logo or colors or how headlines sound, but really it's the strategy of a brand, right? So what do the headlines say? And how does my company fit into the competitive landscape? And how do I want my target audience to perceive the brand? So, but if you're starting a tech startup, you usually haven't found product market fit yet. You don't know your exact target audience and how your product fits into the market, which then means branding and getting the strategy right is actually not possible in this scenario. Let's say, branding as in brand identity, your logo, your colors, and how the website looks. Anything that looks halfway professional is good enough. And maybe what is professional? So you want to have a deck or a landing page or even an entire site that looks like it's clear and easy to understand. So that's often about finding the right headline and a screenshot that explains the benefit. So overall, it's just not so much about the looks. I've spoken with investors who they actually get a little bit suspicious if everything looks like $1 million. They want to see that the team works lean on many levels, including the graphic design portion. So that doesn't mean that you have to make your assets look unprofessional. It just means you want to make them look simple and clean and organized. However, this is different for non-tech startups and more companies are in the B2C space. So the B2C space is often where the entire product might just be the branding, right? So what does the packaging look like and what is the story that I'm trying to sell and tell? So they might have to do a little bit more branding. There are many ways to do this. And it's related to how you think as a founder about the participation of your team and how much time you also want to spend, right? The more people, the longer the process. I'm personally a fan of working lean, and that means only the founder or founders are involved in the branding process. Well, branding, and I mean the real branding with strategy, it comes automatically as you work on the company. So it's much easier to understand the different aspects of branding while you're in the trenches. So my advice is to take a good guess at the beginning and then just kind of keep refining and shaping the strategic answers as you go. So if possible, don't spend any money at this stage. Once you've found product market fit, then you'll have the answers in place and then branding actually makes sense.
You're known for telling startups that they spend too much time on branding and that it's not essential that they get it right from the start. Why is that?
It's just going back to product market fit. It's the one and only thing you have to figure out when you're, at an early stage. And good branding is simply rooted in strategy. And if you don't have the strategy down, your branding will be off. And all in, that's just going to be a waste of time and money.
Although you've said startups spend too much time on branding, you've also said that they shouldn't design the brand themselves using tools like Canva. Instead, you've said that they should focus on what you call black dress design. Can you explain what that is and any tools and services that you would recommend?
Well, to me, no, like black dress is just something classic that allows you to look professional on any occasion. So it's not going to make you stand out in any way, but it's also not going to make you stand out the wrong way, right? So it allows you to find investors, get first clients that just look for something put together. Um, of course, you can use any tool, you can use Canva, you can use many other tools. I just find that they often leave too much room for creativity, which then in return for non-designers, they create often assets that end up looking unprofessional. So, I'm biased here, of course. I recommend a tool that I created specifically for this use case, startups needing brand identity quickly for very little money. It's called Mojamox, and it allows people to design a modern, simple logo or word mark in color palette in a few clicks. I think your first thing is that to realize that your eventual goal is that you want to stand out from the crowd, but still fit into your overall industry look. But to figure out what that means for your branding is to get a good idea of what your customer sees, right? So which is you need to have an overview of your competitor logos and colors and take screenshots and of their websites and stuff and see their headlines. So you kind of get a sense of what their positioning is. And the second aspect is to figure out how you fit into that positioning. So you got to figure out your own positioning. And you can make this a very complicated process with lots of charts and so forth. But in a nutshell, it's about positioning is really one or two words that you want your audience to think when they think of your company. So this doesn't have to do anything with the product directly, right? But it needs to reflect some sort of an aspect that your target audience cares about. For example, like Apple has one large campaign around privacy. So it's showcasing what Apple, the phones, can be best at in its industry, which is privacy. They find that one word and they translate that into a campaign, and you can do the same you can translate that aspect into a logo and into a color palette. And additionally, you want to move away from your competitors visually. So your customer can find you and identify you easily, meaning if everybody is using red, but you realize you can say the same with the neon green, you'll pick the green. The biggest mistake that, is simply that they spend time and money too early. And they often fold, if you look at the stats, startups often fold 6 months later. Or they pivot completely, which is also extremely common. And then branding needs to be redone entirely. So just by looking at the stats, you can actually tell that you don't need to start at that point. And the other mistake is that some founders are way too involved in getting their brand design, and like they try to make complex logos on their own for weeks instead of just going out and hitting the ground selling. Well, so the percentage of how much startups should spend on marketing varies highly. So that's, if you look that up, it's anything from 10 to 40%. My recommendation is, as you probably guess, it's spend as little as possible. And the more tech and the less B2C your product is, the less you can spend on it, right? So if your competitors, though, if they look amazing and great design is important to your target audience, then you might have to spend a little bit more just to hit the table stakes.
Startups often change their branding after they've been around for a few years, whether it's just a color scheme, the logo, or even a complete rebrand of the name. How do you recommend that founders navigate whether or not they ought to change their branding?
It's, it happens very often. So it's not a big deal. I think founders often overthink this. It's very simple. If the positioning changes, the product changes, if your target audience is not the same anymore, your branding changes, right? For big companies, it's usually they make much smaller adjustments. So, but they also make small adjustments over time. Sometimes it's not so apparent to like people outside, but I think the Shell logo transformation over the decades is a pretty popular image. I think if you zoom out, you can really see, the evolution of design, logo design in that case, much more easily. So you don't need to be afraid. You just kind of start over. It's totally fun.